Hello there, and welcome back to part 3 of the creepy true stories of backwoods horror and stuff. This is the Small Logic channel, because I forgot to say that at the beginning, and I am Ramona, and we're going to start delving into these next 10 stories. So, ready? Story 1. I was in California, I think around Humboldt. I'm not sure. We were driving from Portland to San Diego on the ocean route. We pulled over at a bridge to use the bathroom. There was a path down a canyon to a very large stream. Immediately, I started seeing, about every few feet, cheap stuffed animals, the kind that feels stuffed with straw and crunch that you win in a claw machine or at a carnival. Garish colors and texturally grotesque. Halfway down, I feel like I am far enough away from the road. I go back a little bit from the trail, pull my pants down, and hear, "Hi!" I turn around and see a toothless Jesus in his crucifix era sitting in a tent, only the tent is made of these cheap stuffed animals. Also, Jesus is wearing a wetsuit, 1990s soprano style. I look up, and there are 100 stuffed animals nailed to the surrounding trees or are hanging on nooses made from shoelaces. I pulled up my pants, smiled, and loudly said "hi" back, just overcompensating my discomfort with volume. My boyfriend on the path came running. He saw the man, waved at him, grabbed me, and ushered me away. We ran back to the car. If he wasn't there to corroborate what I had seen, I would swear it was all just a hallucination. A Willy Wonka tunnel fever dream. Story 2. I did it overnight on top of a tall ledge 4 miles up in the woods with my girlfriend deep in the woods of New Hampshire, steep and difficult and almost a bushwhack hike up. Totally expected there to be other campers up there, but we got to the top to set up camp, but there was no one. It was a beautiful, peaceful evening with a spectacular sunset and stars to follow, but as it got dark, I was left with a super uneasy feeling and spent the night tossing and turning and waking up in the smallest sounds. Needless to say, we were both up and eager early the next morning to hike back down. It wasn't anyone I saw that night, but as we walked down, we passed a couple of friendly women doing a long hike through where we were coming from, and exchanged hellos in a quick convo. Then about halfway down the mountain, I saw a tall, lanky, pale white dude with a big backpack walking up the trail and watched his eyes stare down my girlfriend with the most predatory look I've ever seen a person give someone else. He hardly even noticed me till he was about 15 feet away, because he was looking at her so hard. Then, when he saw me, I stared him down, but said hello, giving him the benefit of the doubt. He looked at me with intense anger, like he wanted to kill me because I was there. I spent the rest of the hike down, knife in hand, looking over my shoulder. I'll never forget how grateful I felt that we missed him by a day. It's unnerving to think what could have happened up there while we were there the day before, with a solid 3-hour hike down with no one else around. Story 3. Yeah, we were out for a walk at dusk, and some teenage girls came running towards us, screaming. They said a naked man had been stalking them through the nearby woods, which happened to be on our property. We thought they were hysterical and silly. While my husband stayed with the girls, I walked a ways down the road and saw these white shapes moving up and down in the dark shadows of the trees. Then I saw his naked pink torso. It was super weird. I yelled out, "What the F do you think you were doing?" The white shapes, which were athletic socks, jumped up and down really fast and disappeared into the deeper woods. We took the girls to our house, and they called their parents and also the cops. The cops came up and interviewed the girls, visited the neighbors, and did some other stuff. The parents came and got the girls. It was super weird. The next day, my husband and I followed some tracks, but it was not conclusive. We figured it was the neighbor drunk off his ass, being an idiot. Nothing much came of it. I always wondered about that. Small town weirdo. It's been a neighborhood story for about 25 years. Story 4. When I was a teenager, male, 18, I went away to attend an art school in Florida, and I was walking along a wooded path next to a nude beach in Sarasota when I saw a torn page from a Hustler-type nudie magazine. No, I was not naked. Then, a little while longer, another torn page on the path. Of course, I picked them up to look. Then further down there was an unopened bottle of beer. When I bent over to pick it up, I felt someone grab my butt. I yelled out, "Hey!" Turned around, and saw saw the face of this middle-aged man, and it seriously looked like the face of a demon. He had the most twisted, crazed look on his face. He quickly darted around the bushes, and I ran back to my dorm room. I later realized that I had walked right into his trap. Luckily, I am 6'2" and could have overpowered him, but it creeped me the hell out, even to this day. Story 5. OMG. I lived on a property called Upper Melinda for many years, and it's a local story going back to witch burning days. Long story short, they cut this woman in half, who was presumed to be a witch, and they burned each half in a different place and kept Lower Melinda a secret. To this day, no one knows where it is. The legend is that if her halves find their way back to each other, she'd come back to life and haunt the town, or some such. Upper Melinda's gravestone was on the property I lived on, and we had ghost hunters frequently hop our property looking for it. Anyway, I have a few encounters. One where my son almost went zombie-like, heading straight into the woods like he was possessed. But the scarier memory was when I came home from work later one evening, and my toddler son, at the time, would usually run out to greet me. It was dark that night, and I heard him coming up to the side of my car, singing some tuneless something or other, and I smiled, rolled down my window to tell him to watch out. I was parking and to be safe. I could hear him right beside my car door and his sing-songing, and I didn't want to hit him with my car door. He went quiet. I opened my door, and because it was dark and no light illumination, I started looking around, calling him by his name. And at that moment, the back porch light flicked on, and my son came barreling out the back door, followed by my husband. I was beyond confused because I'd literally been smiling and talking to a voice that sounded inches away from my car. The realization that it wasn't my son immediately sent icicles down my spine. Story 6. Big camping trip in western North Carolina, Appalachia in 2007-ish. Group of maybe 5 or so of us kids, all around 10 to 7 years old, decided to go play around the waterfall, little river, and the woods at our campsite. Not abnormal activities for us back then. Parents weren't concerned if we were out of sight playing at the camp. Well, we wandered far into the thick of the woods and got ourselves 100% lost. Couldn't even find the river again to follow it back to the campsite. We started following old campfires further back into the woods, but there was no discernible campsites nearby. As the day went on, we were getting more and more freaked out, realizing how lost we were without food, water, or shelter. Eventually, we all gathered in a circle trying to decide what to do when an old man approaches us out of nowhere, literally appears out of the woods and walks right up to us. I don't recall what specifically was said, but I do remember how weary we were and how we all got a little weird feeling immediately. But he ultimately shepherded us back and got us to a familiar stretch of the river so we could get to our camp. He didn't have a gun and wasn't in camo. He was dressed in a flannel and overalls, so I don't believe he was a hunter. He didn't even have a backpack or anything. Just an old man up in Appalachia who happened upon a gaggle of lost children in the middle of the woods and guided them to safety. It all turned out rosy. Yes, we all got in trouble when the tipsy parents realized how long we'd been gone, that we got lost, and that we found by a mysterious mountain man. But to this day, the memory gives me the heebie-jeebies. Story 7. I went solo camping up near the Black Canyon campground in Heber, Arizona. It was just me and my dog, Zara, that went for a day-night trip. I discovered a small family cemetery about 1,000 feet from my campsite, which I visited. Kind of creepy, especially once the sun went down. Keep in mind that there were no other campers that I saw within a mile of where we went camping. I've camped many times before, and I'm used to hearing the typical insect, random creature noises throughout the night, but this night was specifically dead silent. Nothing of interest really happened until after I had fallen asleep and was woken up by my dog growling and barking. Waking up from a deep sleep to her bark, I wasn't fully aware of what was going on at first until I heard the sound of 2 footsteps that sounded like they were about 5 to 10 feet away from my tent. I froze in fear, and my dog barked a second time. Again, I heard 2 more footsteps, and then it went silent again. The footsteps sounded like they were heavy enough to be a person, but not heavy enough to be a horse or a larger animal. Also, I got the distinct feeling that whatever it was outside was trying to stay quiet while it was moving around. I sat in the tent for about 5 minutes, but never heard the footsteps or any other noises for that matter. I left the tent slowly and walked around the area with a flashlight and my Glock, but found nothing. The strange thing that there was no point did I ever hear anything, did I ever leave the area. I debated it for about 15 minutes if I should just pack up everything and leave for home. Instead, I got back into the tent and lay there with my dog and my pistol for another 30 minutes, just listening for anything else to happen. I didn't hear anything else and eventually fell asleep. I also had a trail cam set up on a tree facing my tent, but was pointed in a different direction from where the noises were coming from, unfortunately. It could have been an animal, but it sure didn't seem like one at the moment. Story 8. I was hiking with a friend in, oh my goodness, I'm going to butcher this one, Methesden State Park in Illinois. It is next to the Starved Rock State Park, and both parks are pretty well known for some violent crimes that have taken place there. So we are the only people in the park, like the only car in the parking lot, and we were hiking through a narrow valley with water running down the middle. Up ahead, we see a man come out of the woods to our side of the water, just ahead of us, wearing nothing but underwear. He saw us and went back into the trees. Logically, he was probably just a homeless guy camping or maybe having sex with another unknown person. But because of the notoriety of the place, it scared the crap out of us. We turned around and went back the way we came, got in our car, and got the hell out of there. Story 9. I went on a road trip by myself and was setting up my tent in a state park in New Mexico. I am a female and was in my mid-20s at the time. A van pulled up and I could see clothes hanging. There was a man who just sat there in the van for about 5 minutes. It was obvious that he was living in this van. I had a hatchet in my hoodie's front pouch pocket. This guy gets out and starts walking towards me. I put my hand up and say, "Stand back," as I raise the hatchet in my other hand. He turns around and got back in the van and proceeded to watch me. I decided to pack up my shit and leave. That little hatchet saved my life that day. I am sure of it. Story 10. One time I wasn't able to sleep at night. I don't remember what time it was, but it was late anyway, and I was looking out my bedroom window, where I see is part of the apartment buildings that are in front of our building. Then I noticed something come out of the window of the apartment, and it was a white figure with no face and something on its back. The thing went back in. The next day, I told my friend about it at school. He told me that he once saw a white figure with no face walking in the street at night, carrying something that was on fire. We freaked out, and I got goosebumps. This story might not be really creepy, but it is certainly interesting. So there you go. Some creepy backwoods, some of it not always backwoods, stories that are interesting, entertaining, if nothing else. Hope you have enjoyed this. If you like to read or you like coloring books, go check out my Amazon author page. There's links in the description of every single video. If you liked this video or any of my others, please leave a like or a comment. I'd appreciate it. And we'll talk to you next time. Thanks and bye.